Well, that went super good. All right, guys, welcome back for the third episode of Budgetmoto Adventures. Check this out. Fires right up. Anyway, it's alive. Got the new carburetor on here. It took a little bit of fiddling around to get the carburetor tuned because it's not an original carburetor, but it's good. I haven't actually ridden it yet because, you know, the tires are trashed, but it runs. When it's all warmed up, we're good to go. And the electric start works. I didn't actually do anything to it. It was just, I think it just needed to kind of get the gears moving again and wake it up, whatever you want to call it. Just things were sticky inside of there, but works great now. So that's a plus. Let's spin this around so you can see the carburetor. I think you can see. So we've got a aftermarket Chinese carburetor in there. And we had to remove the air box. Originally there was a big air box right here with the filter inside of it. The new carburetor just would not work with that. So it's got a aftermarket air filter to go with the carburetor. They came in a kit that was $58, which still blows my mind. And the other thing we had to change is, I'm not sure you can even see it on screen, there's another smaller filter, and the old crankcase filter or crankcase vent went to the airbox. Now the airbox is gone, so we had to plumb that crankcase vent into another little air filter. That was $4. We'll throw that up on screen somewhere. And the only other thing I changed to get it alive was the spark plug, and that was $3. So both of the bikes are running. Now we can move on to the next stuff. So I wanted to take a second to mention that this is abnormal, having to go down the path of replacing the carburetor with something aftermarket. That's never happened to me before. I've never had to just straight up replace a carburetor because it was so broken inside and there were not parts available to fix it. If you're looking at older bikes that are probably more than likely carbureted, don't be scared by this. Don't think that you're going to have to change the carburetor and figure out how to tune a carburetor and get it to work with your engine. That's unlikely. I was just unfortunate enough to have to go through that this time. And I also wanted to point out that there's the right way to do something and there's the way that works, but you can do on a budget. And throughout this project, you know, we have definitely been doing things the budget way, not the right way. A lot of the things that you're going to see me do here in this coming episode, they work. Are they the right way to do it? Would you ever see this being done in a dealership or an independent shop? Absolutely not. But the point is to get our bikes on the road for as little money as possible. And if we can do it inexpensive and safe, that's important, doing it safely, we're going to do whatever it takes. And I encourage you to do the same as well if you have the skills to do it safely. You don't have to spend tons of money on all the special tools to, we'll talk about doing forks and that sort of thing. There are cheaper ways to do it. All right, well, here's the pile of stuff that's going to go on the bike. First thing we've got here, suspension wise, is a set of rear shocks. Both of the rear shocks on this are blown out, as well as the forks. So we're doing fork seals. We got oil. Next we have the tires. Got 2 tires sitting here. Nothing fancy, just the cheapest dual sport type tire I could find. And then we've got a new chain. Again, cheapest I could come up with. This is a non-O-ring chain, which for a bike like this is just fine. A new headlight assembly, a new set of blinkers as well, because there are no blinkers on the bike currently. Then we'll be doing an oil change, which I don't have this stuff sitting here right now, but we've got oil and a filter for it. And the last thing will be just some cosmetic things, cleaning up the seat, installing a USB plug for charging the GPS that's going to be on the handlebars, maybe my phone, and GoPro cameras. All right, so let's resituate everything so we can start doing some work. Step number 1 is the suspension. We're going to start on the fork, so we'll get resituated here. So we're just going to do some quick time lapse, rip these things out, and we'll come back as we're putting seals in it and talk about that for just a second. Okay, here we are over at the table. If you're dealing with a fork that has a bunch of rust on this leg, like this one has here, it's really bad up here. When you go to slide your new seals onto the shaft, you have to either make sure this is all cleaned off really well, or maybe cover it up with a plastic bag as you slide the new seal down. Ideally, you know, if this was at a dealership or something, you wouldn't put seals over this. You would make sure this is perfectly clean and smooth, or you would be replacing parts. But this is Budgetmoto Adventures, so we are going to slide the seal over that stuff with some plastic protection. If you have rust like that down on the portion of the fork where the seal actually slides by, then your seals are just going to blow right out, and that's a whole different scenario. But I think we're good. Either way, the seals are probably going to blow out when I jump this thing. So here we go.
75 years later.
Okay, we got the fork seals replaced. As you can see, it did not go well. They did not want to cooperate. They had to come out the difficult way. This isn't perfect. You can still see a lot of the pitting. I mean, technically this is not right, but we can't get new forks for this bike. It's out of the budget, and also they're not available. So that's what we're running with, working on a budget. So let's throw these back on the bike and move on to the next step. All right, forks are back on. Let's move on to the rear shocks and do that real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic. All right, here's the old one, very definitely blown out. Let me show you the ridiculous new ones. Okay, try not to laugh too hard, and keep in mind, I had to buy the cheapest things I could. Here are the replacements. These are super cheap Chinese shocks from Amazon. I don't have high hopes for these. They're probably not going to be great. They'll likely be better than the shocks that were on it. I'm embarrassed at how ridiculous they look. They have an air fitting here. They're just air shocks. There's no need for this bike to have a shock with a reservoir, even though this is fake. but they were the cheapest shocks I could find, so here we go. All right. Well, that's one of the more ridiculous things I've done to a motorcycle. These do not match the rest of the bike at all, but here we are. All right, we got our shocks on. We're gonna just leave the front end as is right now because we got to do the tires anyway, so wheels not going back on yet. Just wanted to go over, before we move to the next topic, prices. The seals for the forks were $16. Throw this up here somewhere. The oil was $4. And last thing was the rear shocks. That's the pair of shocks was $58. So our suspension, we're at a total of $78. And we're gonna move on to the next topic now, which is tires.
A few moments later.
All right, we got the front tire on, wheel mounted back on the bike. Next, we're gonna move to the rear. The chain is being replaced anyway, and being that this chain is totally trashed, it's just rusted into almost one piece. I'm just gonna cut it, and we'll worry about redoing the chain a little later in the video. I think while I'm getting this wheel off and the tire replaced, why don't you guys check in on Enrique and see how he's handling his tires.
Meanwhile.
Take that. Well, there's nothing wrong with that chain. So, turns out it's a Master Link chain. I could have just taken it apart, but it's been cut now, so garbage. Well, look at that. We both have a good set of tires. We're definitely going to need those. So one thing I wanted to say was, if you don't have a decent table or a trash can or something to work on when you're replacing a tire, when you're spooning a tire on using tire levers, you may want to consider taking it to a motorcycle shop and paying somebody to do it, especially if you have tubeless tires that are, you know, big, meaty, really stiff tires. Those are not fun to spoon on. We were lucky to be dealing with basically dirt bike tires, so not too bad. And last thing on tires, I just wanted to mention date codes on tires. If you're looking at used motorcycles, you may be looking at old tires. And all tires after, I believe it was 2001, use a 4-digit date code that you can find printed on the tire somewhere. It'll be on the sidewall of the tire next to where the tire size is printed. And that code, the first 2 digits are the week of the year. So there's 52 weeks in a year. If you've got 12, that's the 12th week. And the second 2 digits are the year, the last 2 digits of the year. So if you had 12/12, that would be the 12th week of 2012. Before 2001, they were just a 3-digit code. And if you see a 3-digit date code, I don't care how good the tires look, just replace them. This bike had 3-digit codes, a 3-digit code. The last digit on a 3-digit code is the year, and it was an 8. So it was either 98 or 88 or possibly 78, but I doubt those tires were actually that old. So just get rid of them if you have a 3-digit code. Okay, and as for prices, my tires were $112 for both of them, and then the tubes were another $32 for 3 of them. I got 1 rear and 2 fronts, so I've got the spare. And then Enrique's tires, I don't know off the top of my head, we'll throw them up on screen here. The pricing on Enrique's bike is probably going to be a little scrambled just because we're working in 2 different places. We'll go over all the prices at the end of the video just to make sure everything's up to scratch. And next topic is the chain. We're going to throw the new chain on this bike. I don't believe Enrique needed to change his chain, so let's get into that. All right, here's the new chain. Like I said earlier, this is just a non-O-ring chain, nothing fancy. Technically, when you replace a chain, you should replace the sprockets at the same time. This bike only has 5,000 miles on it. The chain wasn't worn out, it was just really rusty and stiff. And this is a Budgetmoto Adventures, so we're just doing the chain. This chain was an amount of dollars. I don't remember. I'll throw it on screen. It was really cheap. Non-O-ring chains are pretty cheap. The downfall is all the rollers are not sealed, so they won't last as long, but we don't really care. We're going for as cheap as possible. So I'll throw this on, readjust the wheel, make sure it's aligned, make sure chain tension is good, and then we'll come back to you here in a minute. Well, would you look at that? Technically, we could ride this right now. We're not going to just because we still got a couple of little things to do, but it runs and I'm like 98% sure would drive. Next, let's get into the lighting. Again, Enrique didn't have to do anything on his lighting, so we can skip him this round again too. Well, as you can see, we got to deal with this monstrosity. This is going to be really time consuming. So we'll see you eventually.
Eventually.
Check it out. Oh, we got lights. As you can probably tell, different clothes. This carried over into the next day. It was way more of a project than I thought it was going to be, trying to chase the wires. I had a few broken fuses. This has glass fuses. And it was a bit of a project, but it's good now. As far as pricing, we had the headlight came with the mounts, and it was $14 on Amazon. I cannot believe I found a headlight for $14. It's definitely junk. Like, it's not a good light, but it'll work. And then we got a set of 4 blinkers for $17. And our next topic is just going to be real quick, change the oil, and we will be back in a minute. Okay, we're back up on the lift. Oil change is done. It's a pretty easy one. Doesn't hold very much oil. And a nice thing that was kind of a surprise, the oil filter on this is the exact same filter as in the KLR 650. And so it was really easy to find, and you can find really cheap filters. So the oil was a whopping $8, cheapest oil I could find at Walmart, and the filter was $4. So there's only a few things left to do now. First thing we're going to tackle is the seat on mine, and Enrique had to recover his seat too. So we'll check on him first, and we'll be back to take a look at this one in a minute. All right, that's how you know you're doing things on a budget, recovering seats with duct tape. We're going to do the same thing to this. I just wanted to say though, duct tape is not a great solution for a seat cover. It doesn't last very long. You'll end up getting the glue from the tape on your pants. In a pinch, it does work, and it's basically free. I mean, pretty much everybody has a roll of duct tape laying around. So let's give this seat the Budgetmoto treatment. Well, that's about the cheapest way you can recover a seat. Like I said before, it's not great. It won't last very long. You're gonna get glue on your pants, but it kind of works. So next thing is the chargers on the handlebar. I think I'll just do that off camera. It'll take a few minutes. We'll be right back.
A few minutes later.
All right, we got the charger on. I almost forgot to put the mirrors back on, but those are on there. Let me show you the charger real quick. So when you put a charger on your bike, make sure you hook it up to a switched power source so that you don't kill your battery. So this has a voltmeter and then also a gauge. When it's running, it'll go yellow and green. And a thermometer. There's a little probe on the back for a temp sensor. And then a USB-A and a USB-C charging port. It's time to take this thing outside, wash it, and do a test drive. I can't believe it. All the hard work is done. All right, guys, apologies if that was a weird jump cut. You have no idea how much time has passed between the last time I recorded and where we're at today. Suffice it to say, things have come a long way. The trip is just about to start here later today, but we needed to make a finish, an ending for this video. Honestly, I can't remember where we're at with numbers and everything. I'll throw that up here on screen on where each bike is at budget-wise. And we will get episode 4 up in just a few days, where we talk about what we did with to get our luggage to work as cheaply as possible. And let me tell you, it's not great, but it'll work. And like I said, apologies for the quick and dirty, kind of unsatisfying end to episode 3, but keep an eye out for episode 4, and episode 5 will be the actual ride. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Fires right up.